So why am I going to focus my attention to give just a one thin slice of that feature when the core is poor in my game? So the first thing needs to be, is my core experience repeatable? Is it fun? Do people engage with it? And that's how I'll look at that. What game am I making and how do I build that in a way that I know that what I'm making is correct? And there has been times that I've even looked at clients and they're like, well, we've got 11 million to spend on this project. And I've said, guys, I don't know if this is going to be a good use of your money, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of questions. Let's do it this way. Let's approach it. We'll do a prototype, like what I like to call the direct-to-market prototype. Get it in people's hands. Make it look good. Get that core experience. Get it out. See if that works. Show that to the different shareholders. You may spend $1 million, $1.5 million. But what you're going to do is you're going to know after that $1 million, $1.5 million, if what you got for your remaining 9 million or 8 million, that is going to be a good product, and you're not going to be wasting that money.
Matt Zoern,
Yes.
yeah, welcome to Creative Collaboration Podcast.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm super excited and love it.
That's good. Thank you. Yeah, it's super welcome to you. Could you start by telling us like how you get into the industry, maybe how that led up to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I didn't start in games. I've been in games now for 21 years. So still a fair amount of time. But when I started in graphic design, and I kind of moved through the graphic design, which then led into web. When that kind of kicked off in my early 20s, and then I was doing websites. I was working in Lingo for CD-ROMs and doing all this stuff. So what we called new media at the time. And so showing my age a little bit, but and then I remember I worked in the music industry for a little bit. I was developing for EMI, Capitol, and Virgin Music out of Canada, just doing a lot of different things, which, funny enough, I started doing these little games, these little experiences for some of the artists. And I remember seeing a post for a job. It was with a company called GANs, and the product was called Webkins. And they were wanting to launch this product. And I remember I was looking at it, I'm like, games are not really my thing, I don't really know it. But I was like, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. And I applied for the job. I got a call back right away. And it was for an art director position. And so I went to go interview for it. And I think within a couple days, they called back and said, we want you for this position. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And what happened was, I guess the art director that was leaving decided that he was going to stay now. And so I was like, okay, that's weird, but whatever. I mean, I'm like, okay. But the owner of the company said, I really liked having a conversation with you. I would like you to come in and discuss again what we could do to bring you in and what would be a good fit. And that officially started my producer type position. I was project manager, producer. This would have been 2003, 2004. I don't remember it's a blur of the years right now. But I started doing that. And that was just, I loved it. I loved doing production. I loved the organization because for me, I like to think I'm creative. Throughout school, I was always in art and art history and doing paintings and things like that. But when I got into production, there was like this left-right brain thinking that I really enjoyed, kind of making something fit and work almost like a puzzle. So that started me into that career path. And from there, I worked with that for 3.5 years. I did amazing stuff that really, cut my teeth quite hard. It was really long, really hard, but it was so worth it. That led me to work with EA, which I moved to San Francisco. Worked with EA for a number of years. And then we moved everybody back to Montreal. And from there, I worked with different companies. I started one of the mobile divisions out of Canada for Funcom. And that led to just other things. And most recently, I was working with Roommate. I was the head of Solid Bash Studio, and did some great things. And now I decided it's time to kind of do my own thing, and taking a lot of my experience and working with some of the guys and doing some cool projects. And And so, yeah, that was kind of my past, how I got into it. It wasn't really what I had gone into, but I somehow ended up here, and it's fun.
All
I
right.
enjoy it.
Cool. Yeah. That's it's a good background, I guess. And how would you describe like your role in the creative process of making games or shipping a great game or a game that sells essentially?
That's a very interesting point, because what is a game that sells? I would argue that there's a lot of people that said I know that say I know what the mixture is, or the recipe for the game, a successful game. But I would challenge to say that a lot of it has to do with timing, your idea, whether it resonates with the community. And sometimes you can have an amazing game and it just does not resonate, or you can have a game that has potential and it does resonate. So it's interesting. So what I do is I look at what is fun. And that's a really weird statement, because how do you quantify fun, right? But it's really about how do you create these experiences that people can either interact together or have something that they can talk about, create some sort of emotional experience. And for me, you have to have the right people around you. I don't know everything. I know some game design, I know production, I know some programming, I know QA, I know all of these aspects, marketing, and I have bits and pieces, but oops. But I am not the person that would sit down and create an entire game design. I'm not a person. So I like to ask questions. I work with the team. I love to work with people who are just as passionate, that want to find something fun, and just ask the questions. I have in the past, but I rarely dictate what needs to happen. I will only do that when I really truly believe, after a few instances, that somebody needs to kind of redirect their thinking, because it's really easy to get into this blinders, putting the blinders on, kind of trying to drive, and here's what the idea is, without really looking at what you're making and how that applies to the user. So I think some of it is just looking at the game and being honest with yourself and saying, like, is this fun? Am I making something that's enjoyable for the community? Am I doing something that's different? Um, and that, to me, is really what drives that creative process. It's how do I do something that resonates with people. But to that point, I don't think creativity strictly relates to um, art or the fun factor. I think creativity can be in any aspect of any team, of any specific discipline, because it's how you approach a problem. Creativity is how you solve problems, in my opinion. So it's all about that problem solving. And
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the sort of, I guess, the main sort of question that I'm trying to not really answer, but talk about. It's like we have all these disciplines that are all needed to ship a game. And sometimes personalities are different, just as well, not just, but sort of based on what your specialization is. Like art's different from tech, it's different from design.
Mhm.
Um, but I think what you say about that with the questions and everything, do you mean essentially that you need like the feedback from like all the different departments?
100%. I think it's important. It's really easy, and I see it all the time, where companies will look at art, and we see it now with AI. They're like, well, I can just use AI and create the art. And I mean, yes, to a certain extent, but there's something there's that magic powder, I guess. But everybody has a part in it, and it's really easy for companies or clients or people that look at it that don't understand art or don't understand audio, because audio is a big one as well. It's about the experience. It's about everything coming together. So you need people that are in those key lead roles that understand that don't just understand, I am an engineer and this is exactly what I do. That engineer needs to understand that game design has a value, that art has a value, that audio has a value, that QA has a value. And I think QA is one of the things that's very underrated. A lot of people look at QA as just like, the end of the line, but QA is your last gateway to get out to the user. You don't want to test on your users. That is a really quick way to destroy your user base. And it's harder to get people back once you've done that. So I think every aspect needs to be in. I mean, it's the same with casinos. They don't just look at maybe not a great analogy, but it's the one thing that I can think of is where they look at the sounds that are being played, the environment, the everything kind of comes together to have an optimal, response to people. And that needs to happen in games. So you have to have the right people in those positions, all talking with the same vision and the same direction that want to do something enjoyable. And you got to put your personal differences aside and just make shit happen.
Yeah. And I would say this is obviously hard to answer, but generally, do you think we get it? Like, do people in the industry get that? Do these roles, these people that you talk about, do they get it like on the general basis? And also, like, can you give us maybe an example from your career when it either worked or just went belly up just because of...
Yeah, that's a good one because I don't think anybody at any specific time gets it or doesn't get it. I think it depends on the project.
Mhm.
Just like it has to resonate with the users, the end user, it has to resonate with the team as well. So do people get it? I've worked with people who are amazing at what they do. And then you get them on a project that just doesn't resonate with them and they don't get it. Right. So that's a tough one. I don't think there's a cut and dry answer to that. There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of personal, we bring our personalities with us wherever we are. So, somebody can have a bad day. Somebody can be going through a tough time in their life. And that plays a factor in it as well, because we're humans and that's just the reality. Um, so I don't know if, there's a specific people that get it or people that don't. I'm sure, like I said before, there are people that say, I know what the recipe is, but also think, there is some truth to that, but it's also take it with a grain of salt. Like I've had successes, I've had failures, and, not everything works. What hasn't worked in the past? I mean, I can name a number. I remember, working on one project that, it was supposed to be cut and dry. It was supposed to get out there and just get it done. Um, but a series of different things happened from the client saying they didn't want to spend the money on what needed to be done. And I get it. They just wanted to rush something out. There was competition that was nipping at the heels. They sidebarred the entire team and went right to the engineers, which then the whole thing was built around the engineers, didn't have any game design factor in it. And the whole thing, to be completely frank with you, an amazing AAA IP, and it was an absolute piece of shit. I mean, just not to mince words, it was a piece of shit. And we had our asses handed to us by the competition. The competition came in and just wiped us out because they were creating something that was enjoyable, and they you could see, there wasn't this factor of trying to cut corners and do all of this stuff. And I think that's one of the thing that really is the biggest challenge with some of the games you're working on. If somebody wants to cut corners, I think cutting corners can be okay depending on what it is, but if your whole drive is to save money and cut corners, you're in the wrong industry if you're doing a AAA game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. But it's also interesting because I mean, looking at again how to make like creative collaboration or collaboration work like inside a company or like between departments. But then what you mentioned is interesting. Like there's a third party coming in and sort of messing it up. What do you think would you have been able to handle it differently? Like, for example, in tech, if tech in this example would have like, hey, these guys reached out, they wanted this.
Yeah.
They had then just turned to the other guys, or what we fixed it.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a utopia, I think that what should have happened is that the engineers should have been looking less about trying to satisfy the client and looking at their own team and being part of the team.
Mhm.
And I think that was, you created a fragmented team, and there's nothing good that, in my opinion, that can come to that. Back to the original point, every aspect of every department and discipline has a role to play, and it has to be cohesive. And if it's not, then your chances of success are much more reduced, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, what could have happened? They should have come to the team and said, "Look, I'm getting pushback from these guys, and we should have been a united front." And I think that happens a lot. clients want to talk directly to one person. And I mean, I can even say in one instance, I'm guilty of it as well, not intentionally, where I wasn't the client, but I was the executive producer. And I remember one of my art lead came in and said to me once, um, can you do me a favor and not ask for changes directly to the team? And I'm like, I didn't ask for changes directly from the team. And they're like, well, you were talking to people and on the floor and you made a comment that was, wouldn't it be good if? And I was like, I remember that, but I wasn't asking to do anything. And they're like, well, you're the executive producer and people want to listen to you. So, when you said, wouldn't it be great? They started to do it. And I'm like, okay, that was not my intention. I'm very sorry, and it's like, yeah, it can happen. It's easy to happen, right? And people, of course, want to satisfy if their boss's boss comes to them and says they're going to be like, yes. So I took that as a good learning experience for myself to say, okay, if I'm ever in that situation again, I have to recognize that what I say holds weight to somebody. And I have to be aware that I'm not giving direction. I'm just having a conversation with somebody about it. And I need to also go through the proper channels. So I'm very aware of that and try to be like, no, don't. We're just having a conversation. I want to know about, you or something to that.
Yeah.
So it's easy to get side railed.
Yeah. No, good point. And so creative collaboration, what does that mean to you personally? And like you, and also on the flip side to my previous questions, and tell us about like when that worked, when that gelled, when everyone tuned, if you can.
So I remember the best time that all gelled together was when I was working, this was with Funcom, and we were working with Lego. It was called the Future Lab, Future Lab at the time. So it was all about trying to look at digital experiences and create these different experiences around gameplay and Lego bricks and this type of thing. And that was such an amazing experience because you had a team, Lego, that understood their product so well. And people that, in my opinion, funny enough that I'm actually working with a couple of the guys still today on a product that I'm working on. But 10 years later, we did some amazing things where it was about the creativity of how can we truly do something different and create again that emotional connection. And that came out with, first of all, they shipped me. I remember the day we had 25 cases of Lego show up at our door. And I mean, not just little box, like cases of Lego. And I remember just looking at this being like a kid in a candy store. And it was such a good idea for them to do this because something that costs them nothing and that has such a value to tapping into this creativity of creating something with your hands and this tactile response for something that we all know. I mean, Lego is such a worldwide, I don't want to say toy, but experience that it drove this creativity. And then everybody had such a respect for each other and what their roles were that it was about exploring what we could do. And from there, we created some amazing stuff. One of which that I still remember, it's called a Lego fish tank, and it never went anywhere. We created this experience. This would have been 2014. So you literally used Lego bricks, created something, scanned it. It was a bit more of a process back then, but we scanned it and that created a fish or something that you could feed your fish or something for your aquarium that you had on your phone that you could interact with this like it was glass on your phone. And that ended up, I remember the day that got shut down because we thought it was awesome. And we showed the Lego management, or we didn't, the Lego team showed their management. And I remember still to this day, the point that was made is somebody in the room said, well, fish aren't fun. And that literally killed the project.
Yeah. All right.
Fast forward, a few years later, so in Billund, there's I think it's called the Lego House. It's the museum there. They took the whole downtown and they built this entire experience around Lego. And Lego Fish Tank was redeployed to this place where kids can come in, build their Lego bricks, build from their Lego bricks and build fish, take a picture and put it into the aquarium at the Lego House. And it is one of the most popular experiences to date, 10 plus years later.
All right.
So I think, a good product, how does that creative collaboration work? I think good product, everybody needs to be into it and feel that. It's that, again, I keep saying this emotional connection. If you feel the emotional connection with what you're doing, then I think you've got a better chance of making something that will resonate with people, because your passion goes into what you're creating and people will feel that same passion in the end, in my opinion.
Okay. So it's about essentially like everyone pulling in the same direction on understanding why we're doing this and all the usual stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, but pulling in the same direction also means challenging if the direction is correct. Because I do remember an experience just very recently where, I remember asking the head of creative, I'm like, is this the right thing to do? Are we doing the right thing? And it was like, yeah, this is the right thing. And I asked a few times over the course of many months, I said, well, what if we kind of changed it up a little bit and did it this way? Would that create the experience where people are coming together and it creates those moments where people are like, oh, do you remember when we blah, blah, blah? And they were like, yeah, it could, but we don't really have the time. And I'm like, okay, I kind of let it go. So I think 8 months passed and I looked at the product and I'm like, guys, this is not coming together. I said, okay, it's time for me to step in. And this was one of the moments where I stepped in and I was like, okay, we need to do something. So I said, okay, stop what we're doing. We're going to get everybody to reconnect on how we want to build this. And I would like to see a demo. You tell me, I'm thinking 6, 8, 10 weeks. Let's focus on a demo of using the engine that we have and build it in this way that I've been kind of challenging over the last 8 months. And and all of a sudden that changed everything. Everybody was like, they felt inspired, right? And truly we created something that was fun. The only problem was that by that point, the product was already out on the market. It didn't really survive because getting all of the users back that we had, it was really costly. It was too late. And I sometimes challenge myself and say, should I have really pushed earlier? And it's easy to look back on something and say, well, I should have, I could have. But I think, you just take those experiences and you kind of run with it. But I do remember that passion and that change in tone. So, yes, everybody should be pulling in the right direction, but I also believe that people should challenge sometimes if they feel that it's not resonating with them. And because those are the moments where there's something not right. You feel it, right? You can't necessarily voice it, but you feel something's not right. And if everybody's pulling in the same direction and not listening to their inner self, then sometimes that can actually be detrimental to the creative process. So I think people need to also sometimes take a step back, take a breath, look at it and listen to what their colleagues are saying, or at least try to understand what they're saying, because there's a learning there. I think everybody, especially when you've got people that are veterans that have done this, you need to kind of listen to people's guts sometimes.
All right. So based on that, what do you think is the sort of balance between, strong individual creativity versus like team alignment?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. I think you need to look at your team, and my role, um, in my experience throughout all of the different places I've worked and all of the different roles that I've taken in a management position. My approach has always been, how do you look at the way that the team is configured, what everybody's doing, and where are the holes in it? I don't believe that copying and pasting process or copying and pasting what somebody else did works in every company because everybody's got a different personality. And you need to find the thing that that resonates with the people. I don't think that there's a perfect situation. It's like, it's not making a cake. I'm not just going to keep adding the 2 eggs, a little bit of flour and vanilla and, all of these different things, slapping some icing and doing it. It really is like finding what resonates with the people and how they work with the team. And sometimes that does mean taking somebody that could be a very strong individual in a leadership role and moving them out of it, because that can actually create toxicity if they're not connected with it and they're not in a situation where they're not, I don't want to say playing nice with everybody, but being kind of pushing their agenda in an aggressive way or in a disrespectful way. Then I don't think that works. Then you need to act quickly on that. And I think back to all of the successes that I've had, have unfortunately had situations where you've had to remove people that, you don't want to, because they're such a key person. But if a key person is in a position where they're not resonating with the team, they're not a key person. And you have to be honest with yourself. And it's going to hurt to take them out of the role. And it's going to hurt to find somebody that fits right. But your results are going to be so much better in the long run because you don't create that tension between the team. Again, it's resonating with the team. It's how do you get the team to be, kind of cohesive and collaborative together. And if you've got one person that is not, then you don't have a good recipe.
No, just the weakest link or whatever.
The weakest link. But that's the funny thing is, they might not even be the weakest link.
No, like, don't weak to link. But
That's exactly.
yeah. No.
And it's a tough one. So yeah, I think again, you have to look at how the team is configured and work with the team to make them their best. And that is, in my position, the role that I need to be as whatever it is, a producer, an executive producer, production in general, whatever that role, title, whatever it is. My role is to challenge, to make sure that the right people are there and to have them be the best versions of themselves, not to be the person that wants to take the glory. So,
yeah. Okay. And then speaking of like personalities, do you think you could like be a natural collaborator, or is that something you sort of learn over time, or is it a mix? Or
I don't know how I feel about that. That's a very good question. I don't know how I feel about that, because looking at it from my perspective, I like collaboration. I like to work with people because it's easy to get stuck in your own head, but there are people that are not good collaborators, I think. If I was to give my opinion on that kind of on the fly, I feel that maybe it's more about people will be more collaborative if they feel that they're part of something and they feel the passion. And they'll be more kind of ready to be collaborative with people because they're making something fun.
Yeah.
Every time I've seen something that people truly enjoy, I've seen people that are maybe not good collaborators be really good at collaboration because, again, everybody's pushing in the same direction and feels that passion and feels they're doing something interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And you've talked a little bit about it, but like, how do you personally approach, collaboration where, more like traditional creatives are involved with, like, let's say everyone else, like marketing, or do you have a personal approach, or maybe that's just like what you were saying before, like trying to push everyone, or at least drawing them one to know the common goal.
Yeah, I think, reminding people of the common goal, keeping people on track. Marketing plays a very important role. I think a lot of people, just like audio and art, sometimes feel that marketing is not important because I think somehow over the years, for some reason, marketing, people have feel that marketing has become this evil thing. But, everybody wants to promote their game. Everybody wants to be successful, so it's necessary. I think you need to consider all aspects when you're in the production area. You need to plan it out properly. Marketing does have a role to play. Marketing should not be dictating the direction of a game, but they can have influence, just like everybody else, on what they see in the market. If they're asking the right questions, if you're working with them to find out, the information, then they can bring that information back and that can be useful. Just like you need to give them from the production something to work with, whether that's production, whether that's, I don't know what else, I guess QA and stuff like that, but it's they're part of the team as well.
Yeah.
And I've worked with different clients that even have completely not game related aspects of teams that you need to work with that have some value. And as long as you need to recognize that everybody has a role to play. And you don't know everything. I don't know everything, sometimes I like to think I do. No, I don't. But you need to listen, and you need to be analytical, and you need to question, and you need to always do that. And then I think you'll have a better chance of getting something out of it, because everybody again is pushing in that same direction, and everybody is feeling the passion.
Yeah, and how early do you think commercial voices should be like allowed to enter the, let's call it, the creative process?
That's a tough one, because I've always throughout my career, even my first with Webkins, we were very much involved in the community. We had a lot of community involvement with the game. I think it has changed over time, because before we would get the community involved after the game's launched and be listening to it. I think there is definitely an aspect where you need to get people involved early, but it's a delicate balance, because even when we were working with the community in Webkins, people will tell you what they want.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't mean that's what they want. Because in my experience, and I've done a lot of different things over the years, but if you give them exactly what they want, you run the risk of I don't want to say destroying the project, because that's very, doom and gloom, but you run the risk of people not having that what they're doing has a value, right? Because let me give an example. If a user says, I want to be able to collect more characters, for example, and then, the game design says, yes, let's give them tons more characters. They're asking for more characters. Let's give them characters. If it's easy to get those characters, the value from the perception of the person that's asking for more characters, the value is lower, because I'm just getting these characters. I don't have to work for it, right? Because a lot of people think it's not just about the monetary value you're charging for something. It's about the time investment, and that investment of my personality into something, where when I receive a character, there is a value associated maybe in my brain or whatever to that character. I worked really hard to get that character. Yeah, it's a digital asset, but I had fun doing it. So you don't want to just give away everything. And I remember this term that we had in Webkins that I still use today. And it's funny, but the term was treat 'em mean, keep 'em keen. And it's it can be taken in so many ways, but it was always the exact thing that we did. We didn't just give them what they wanted. We looked at what they were asking for, and then we tried to build something around the idea of what they're getting through. So it's not just taking word for word, it's trying to understand what it is that they want. And I think that's the same thing in production, that I brought up earlier. It's like if something's not resonating, something's not right, it's just eating at them. What is it, right? What is that thing? You can say it's this, but it's not always this, I find. It's always something a little bit deeper. There's a deeper problem that you have to track back to.
Yeah, cool. And speaking of production, then are there any tools, workflows, rituals, processes that you're fond of or have been using, or are your go-to solutions to get the collaboration?
Yeah. So it's funny, because I remember having an interview, it's got to be 10 plus years ago, was having an interview with a company. I don't remember what the company was, to be completely frank with you, but it was. I remember it being a big company, and I was talking with one of the production people, and they turned around and they were like, "Well, what is your project management methodology?" I'm like, "Well, I what project management methodology do you employ?" And I'm like, "Oh, I employed the GEDS project methodology." And they're like, "Oh, that's fascinating. What is this GEDS methodology?" And I looked at them and I was like, "It's the get her done, son methodology." It's like, and I remember the look on their face was just complete confusion. And it's like, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if I use waterfall, doesn't matter if I use Scrum, it doesn't matter if agile, Kanban, whatever you want to call it. It has to be what gets it done,
Mhm.
you know? And for me, I've never been a staunch idea of this is exactly how it needs to go. Like I said before, it's not a copy and paste. It's what works with the team. If I have to create a high level plan that's waterfall style, but then we build something in Jira that is agile, and that works for people, then it works for people. The important thing is that you think about all of the moving parts and that you don't sweep some of that stuff under the table when the time is right, where you're trying to kid yourself and get the product out, and you just kind of, "Oh, I'll deal with that later." That's a really good way to screw yourself at the end. If you push and suppress things that are happening too much and say you're going to deal with it later, that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. Um, so needless to say, I didn't get that job. But I mean, I literally have done projects where I'm like, okay, well, for example, a porting job. The team was like, I think Kanban would work. And I'm like, okay, let's try it. And Kanban worked for them because it's a lot of that stuff is very easy to quantify. It's like, I need to go here, I need that, and here are all the different steps. We just move the things, and that's what it is. I've had projects where, it's agile light, right?
Mm.
I've had projects where it's like strictly agile. And I think it needs to be what resonates with the team. You need to look at those different things and you need to look at what your team likes, and then you need to build processes around that. You do need, in my opinion, a roadmap. You need to know where you're going, and you need to have marks, or kind of stakes in the ground to say, that is the point where we should be blah.
Mhm.
Or X. That's the point where we should be Y. And the way that I've changed that over the years, and this is something that I found more recently, working on projects, I remember for so many years, it was like, and this is again the copy and paste type idea. Well, we need to start pre-production. Then we're going to do prototype. Then we're going to do first playable. Then we're going to do alpha and maybe an alpha 2. And then we're going to do beta. And then we're going to do open beta. And then we're going to do closed beta. And then we're going to do playtesting. I don't do that shit anymore. What I do is I might take some of those points, but the way that I build a production plan is, what is the core experience that we're trying to get? And maybe this ties back a little bit to your question about other teams and marketing, but what is it that I'm trying to get? And I focus the milestones on the experience. What is the core experience that I need to have? Because what I've found over the years, when you get to first playable, everybody's just trying to make that thin slice of every little feature. But the problem is, if your core is not right, everything else is useless. It doesn't matter. So why am I going to focus my attention and my to give just a one thin slice of that feature when the core is poor in my game? So the first thing needs to be, is my core experience repeatable? Is it fun? Do people engage with it? And that's how I'll look at that. Maybe we do need to prototype that. Maybe we need 2 milestones to get to that point, to look at the core. But usually by the 3rd milestone, we're just making sure that the core is solid, because it's your foundation. If your foundation is not strong, it doesn't matter what frames you put in your rooms, that has to be redone if you have to build your foundation again. So don't waste your time doing that stuff. So that's kind of how I've started to approach things. Less about the traditional way of making video games.
Mhm.
It's about, what game am I making and how do I build that in a way that I know that what I'm making is correct. And there has been times that I've even looked at clients and they're like, well, we've got 11 million to spend on this project. And I've said, guys, I don't know if this is going to be a good use of your money, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of questions. Let's do it this way. Let's approach it. We'll do a prototype, like a good, what I like to call the direct to market prototype. Get it in people's hands. Make it look good. Get that core experience. Get it out. See if that works. Show that to the different shareholders. You may spend $1 million, $1.5 million. But what you're going to do is you're going to know after that $1.5 million, if what you got for your remaining 9 million or 8 million, that is going to be a good product and you're not going to be wasting that money. And that has been the best results that I have found with companies, because not only are you not just like, give me your money, I want that 11 million to make my baseline for this year, and I'll make my amount of money that I need, and I'm successful, I hit my targets. It's more about, does this actually resonate with the community and you're making good products? Because that's why we got into this. We got into this to make a product, and we've gotten really good over the years of extracting every penny from a person. And I think that has not served us in the long run. And we are now in a position where that, among other things, is actually coming home, because people will sit there and this is a better experience than actually getting involved in and engaged in a game.
Yeah, cool. And speaking of, again, like collaborating between departments and stuff like that, any similar like processes, rituals, ideas, methodologies, if you will, to get artists to work with designers, to work with marketing, listen to marketing, not having someone really strong just drive things in the wrong direction, like could be a tool or anything. What do you think? Stand-ups or whatever it is.
Stand-ups, I think, are a good one. Stand-ups can get sidetracked. You have to, I think stand-ups, you have to keep it very light. People, and this is what I see a lot of times, is stand-ups end up being more about telling people what I've done.
Yeah.
I did this yesterday. This is, I'm justifying what I've done. Your tasks are going to justify what you've done, right?
Really?
Like, I don't need to have somebody stand up and tell me what they did yesterday. I need somebody to stand up and tell me if they've got a roadblock. And that's where I think some of the differences are with that. So I think stand-ups are really good. I think the key to what I find is having strong leads in every discipline. Strong lead artist, strong lead tech, strong lead, because those are the people that are understanding what needs to be done and can work with all of those different people. And everybody has a seat at the table, and everybody, but at the end of the day, a decision needs to be made. And sometimes you have to make a decision that's with the information that you have. And I've seen that type of approach where a lot of people over time have decided that not making a decision because they don't have all the information. Well, I can't make a decision. I don't have all the information, but you're never going to have all the information. And when you don't make a decision, you're deciding to not do anything about something. So you have to make a decision. You can change your mind or you can change your decision based on new facts, but you have to give people direction. And if you don't make a decision, if you have to, then I think that's not doing the team justice. And you have to live by those decisions. And, I always say that as in production, it's always the team's win and your failure.
All right. So speaking of which, is there a mistake or tough lesson you learned in your career? But like, again, an example when this didn't work, and what did you take away from that?
I mean, I've had lots of different games that have done well or haven't done well. When this didn't work, I think when you don't listen to your gut and you need to make a decision and you're not listening to yourself, that it's not the right decision, or you're giving in to pressures from whether it's up or a client or whatever, or even within the team. Like, they need somebody, and this person, and I have in the past, and I'm a bit, I look optimistically at people, right? sometimes I have my rose-colored glasses, and I know maybe putting somebody into a position um, is not the right thing, and that has hurt me in the past, hurt the production, where you put somebody that you want them to succeed, and they want to, but there's something that doesn't work, whether a myriad of different reasons, but that you don't listen to your gut, and I think if you don't listen to your gut and something isn't right, then you're not actually doing your job. You have to understand what that is, and you have to be more in touch with yourself and understand why something doesn't feel right, and come and figure it out, because that is usually the indicator that something isn't right. So, do I have a specific experience? Yeah, I can think of a few different experiences where I've either put somebody in a position that they weren't ready for, and that I didn't make the decision quick enough to pull them back out. Um, I listened to upper management say that person's too expensive and we can't keep them, over no, they're key to the project and it's not about the money, it's about the project. And, and this project won't be successful and we won't make the money later if we get rid of this person because they're key to it. So there's been many different instances of that. I think what I what I heard somebody coin as Excel management.
Yeah.
I think that's very bad. When you're listening to the people that don't make games tell you how to make a game.
Mm.
And that's a tough one because those people can be your boss.
Sure.
And and I've over the years, I'm a vocal person. I will tell people what is on my mind.
Mhm.
Sometimes maybe not as diplomatic as I should be,
Yep.
but I will always, I mean, like, hey, if you're trusting me to be in this position, then you need to listen to what I'm saying. And if there's something not collaborating, then we need to figure out what it is. But I don't respect people that don't understand and try to tell me how to do my job.
Yeah. No, yeah.
And it's like, try to sit there and explain to me how a company works. It's like, I know how companies work. I've run studios, I've started studios, I get it. You're the one that doesn't get it. And you need to start listening to the people around you. And I think that is the humbling experience that I've found, is that, again, what I said at the start, I don't know everything. And I trust that my team that I hire around me are going to help me make the best product with the best minds, and not just tell people this is how it needs to be done because I'm the CEO or I'm the COO and that's what it needs to happen.
Mm.
That to me is, you're not going to get a good result there.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. And anyway, that's top-down pressure. Have you ever had to sort of kill a darling based on, you know, what a subordinate or the team felt, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I like to call it killing your child, because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a brutal term, but when you have something that is so kind of ingrained, and I love what I do, and I enjoy doing these things. And I've had instances where, going back to not having the right people in a position, and I've had to, that are friends. And I remember one instance, a game designer, we had put this game together. The idea was great, but the execution was not good. And, I was just like, it was one too many things at that point, and I just had to have a conversation. I'm like, look, I'm sorry, but this is not working. And, the time is up. So we're going to have to, part ways here.
Mm.
And it's not an easy thing, especially if you've worked with somebody for years and you even have a personal relationship. You have to be able to create that this is personal and this is business, and not in a cold way. Because I think you can still have a business relationship and respect, and have that respect, but you also need to be, if you're in a position of management, you also have to be honest with the people and honest with yourself and explain to people and just kind of, as I said, kill your children.
Yeah.
Because whether that's a creative idea or the people that you work with, it's tough and it's a very lonely position, I think, in production. So
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And so would you be able to give advice to someone that's, starting a new role or just maybe just entered the industry based on what we talked about, like, collaboration and all that stuff? Like,
if you're just starting in the industry, what you need to do is be a sponge and you need to ask questions. The one thing that I've always said with people is ask me. Ask a question. If you don't understand, if I ask you something or ask you to do something or ask for this and you don't understand, ask a question. I will never fault somebody for asking a question of me, because why wouldn't you? Right? Well, I want somebody to understand. I want somebody to be a good contributor and to enjoy what they do. And if I'm looking, well, that's a stupid question, then I'm not a good leader.
you're not going to get any more questions, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, I would say somebody's entering the industry, be a sponge, ask questions, you know, be curious, try different things. Because now, especially more so than in, 2 decades ago, people, I think, have to have multiple different disciplines. They have to understand a lot of different things. Um, Otherwise, they're not going to be as successful, in my opinion. So you need to always learn. I always try to learn. I always try to look at what I've done in the past or how I've responded to a certain situation and try to learn from that. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes recently too. So, c'est la vie. Make mistakes, be honest about it, be true to yourself, listen to your gut, be a sponge.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks. And then the hardest question of all, who else would you love to see on the show?
I think Morton Larson
Yeah.
would be a very interesting character to actually listen to and hear from. Because out of all of the people that I've worked with in the industry, for some reason, his charisma and the way that he approaches stuff is so matter of fact and true to himself. He doesn't mince words. He just will tell you how it is without any kind of, I don't want to say passion, because I think he is a passionate person, but any negative or any kind of hurtful kind of points behind it. I think he's a good guy. I think would be and maybe he's on my mind because I just ran into him now, but I can't think of anybody else that I would want to see and hear from. Good, because he's been in the industry for a while, and I think
I usually say no guarantees, but in this case, I think I can make that up. And yeah, we'll be seeing more than hopefully on the show. And then last, where can people read more or know more about what you're doing now?
Yeah. So the big thing that I'm really pushing now, and I've gotten a really good response. We launched it last week as an early alpha, and we're showing people the last couple days here at Gamescom. Is it's called Borflab. You can find us on LinkedIn on Borflab, Borflab, one word. We're on Twitter at Borflab.
Yeah, we can add the links.
Yeah, you showed me. And so it's about all what I talked about: creating passion, connection, and creativity around physical play that brings you to digital experiences, and creating that tie and bringing your toys to your friend's house. So that is one of the things. I also have my own company where we've been doing a lot of very interesting things, both in the Web3, but also in the AAPC market, which is called Wildfire. And you can find us Wildfire Productions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I enjoyed that very much. Thanks for being on the show, and I'll see you around.
All right. I appreciate it.
Thanks. Awesome.